Before we get started on the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good afternoon again. Got it right that time. I did get a fun surprise in the mail today. I was expecting it yesterday for tomorrow. My book. So, I hate that has a stupid banner on the top, in the front. It's like, do not resell. I'm like, how am I supposed to proof copy this if you've like covered it up? Anyway, so this is my second edition of my book, The Buddha Journey, Questions and Answers for the Awakening Mind. I had first published this book, I think like a decade ago. It's like way before I became a monk. So this is the second edition. It has a handful of the original questions I had in the OG book, along with a lot of handful of new questions. So it has over 100 questions that I hope I have given sufficient answers to. Some of them are more elaborate, because we all know I love to talk. Some are straight to the point, but I hope to, I still have to reproof this. I have a bad habit, and this stems from like my high school days. I have a bad habit of not proofreading my stuff after I write them. In college and high school, I don't think I've ever proofread any of my essays, ever. The only essay I've ever proofread was my thesis for my graduate degree. Other than that, I've never bothered. Not to sound cocky, but I've always been a very good writer, so I never really needed to kind of go back and proofread. But anyway, back to the point. Anyway, I hope this will be available next weekend. Hopefully next Friday or Saturday. I will announce it once it is up and running, and it will be available on Amazon. Okay, I'm going to try to make this quick because I intended to go through the full list of the first session. I did not. So I'm going to try to quickly go through it so we can get to the good stuff, which is what we need to do to develop our Bodhicitta and hopefully give our Venerable Abbot enough time to talk if I don't take enough time. So, we've covered the characters and the perspectives of the Bodhisattva. So now we're going to cover quickly the perseverance and diligence and then the practices of the Bodhisattva. So perseverance and diligence actually is wrong. Spirit of the Bodhisattva, which is perseverance and diligence. I just mix them around. So, as we all know in today's society, speed is everything, right? We have airplanes, we have spaceships, we have same-day shipping, we have the internet and pressure cookers and instant noodles, right? Everything needs to be done quickly. So the unfortunate side of that is, as much as we strive to have greater speed in everything that we do, we still have to be honest with ourselves and admit that there's no shortcut to building a person's character, right? And so since a tree cannot grow to its full height in one day, neither can we. There was a saying that I read the other day that said, the nurturing of trees takes decades. The nurturing of humanity is measured in centuries. So certain things just have to be done slowly and not be hurried. And that goes for our practice as well. There are so many instances where people have come and asked questions and advice and needed guidance. And a lot of these people are just trying to shortcut. They want happiness now. They want happiness yesterday. They want peace of mind yesterday. They want enlightenment 10 days ago, right? And so there's this, I don't know if it's really relevant anymore, but I remember back in the day, especially when I first started to seriously practice Buddhism, one of the things that brought people to Buddhism, from the people that I've encountered with, is they assumed that Buddhism was this happiness pill, right? You study a little bit of Buddhism, you practice a little bit, and all of a sudden you're just magically happy with no effort. You're just, all my suffering just washed away because I read a book. Well, we've all read a book, and we're all still miserable. So clearly, it's not working. So, but as bodhisattvas, and as aspiring bodhisattvas and aspiring Buddhas, we have to be steadfast in our patience and in our endurance, so that we can work, so the progress in our work never lapse. So the Bodhisattva spirit is characterized by perseverance, patience, endurance, and diligence, which is the first of the 4 perfections, the paramittas. And through these first 4 paramittas of perseverance, patience, endurance, and diligence is where we start to attain enough meditative absorption in order to do our deep contemplations and attain that wisdom, the 6th and final perfection, paramitta. So how does the Bodhisattva spirit of perseverance and diligence come about? How do we get there? What are we supposed to do? Well, ironically, by the development of Bodhicitta. So now comes the good stuff, right? And so Bodhicitta is also, we may see it be translated as Bodhi mind as well. Bodhi mind is usually the more conventional term used by Western teachers or authors. They'll use Bodhi mind instead of Bodhicitta. But regardless of what version you read, just know that they are one of the same. So with the Bodhi mind, Bodhisattvas are not intimidated by the long and arduous journey to Buddhahood. They can distance themselves from the 3 realms and dwell in the Dharma sea of truth, meaning that the endless cycle of all the different realms, endless cycle of life itself, endless cycle of this universe, of this extremely long kalpa, doesn't scare them a bit, right? Time means nothing. Time is relative. So regardless of how long it may actually take you to become fully enlightened, right? That in itself should not be a single drop or ounce of doubt within you or discouragement, okay? Just think of life in general. There's nothing that you can do or perfect or master without practice, without constantly doing it routinely over and over again, right? Just think of your job. We've all had jobs where we have that training period, maybe we have a probation period before they stick you out there on your own and hope for the best, that you don't burn down the place, right? And so even that takes time. Our education takes time. Our understanding takes time. Our practice most definitely takes time. And so a lot of times, especially a lot of the discouragements I hear from people is they just don't know what to do in the practice. How do I practice? Where do I practice? How do I start? What do I start with? And of course, that is a very difficult answer and a difficult question, because it just depends on you as a practitioner. What is your goal? What is your motivation? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? Bodhisattva, or you simply just want peace and freedom and joy and happiness? Because all that comes with the package, okay? But none of these characteristics of freedom, happiness, joy, and equanimity, none of them comes without any work. None of them comes without perseverance, without diligence, without any of the other perfections. And so, aspiring or trying to develop our bodhicitta, or bodhi mind, is our commitment to seek the Buddha way and liberate all beings. That is our greatest aspiration as bodhisattvas. And so there's no shortcut to the bodhisattva path. The initiation of the bodhi mind, of bodhicitta, marks your transformation from the ordinary to the transcendental. Okay? And that's the first step to your path to Buddhahood, to liberation. Okay, no, I'm gonna stop. I'm at time crunch. The last aspect is of the Bodhisattva practices. So this is where kind of all the methodical and kind of eternal practices come from. When the Buddha was asked if he could surmise his teachings, the Buddha replied that to abstain from all evil and practice only the good and purify the mind. This is the teaching of all Buddhas. And we've heard this many times, especially our Abbot will say, to do good, do not do bad, tame your mind. Right? It's essentially the fundamental of how we should practice. And by abstaining from doing evil and to willingly do good, to tame your mind, you're already practicing your precepts, your bodhisattva vows, all of the Brahma Viharas, the four immeasurables, all of the paramittas, the perfections, and eventually we'll also get to the 37 factors of enlightenment. So and of course there's different levels of enlightenment, different levels of bodhisattva, and different levels of Buddhahood. However, for us common folk, right, for those who have taken, whether you've taken or have not taken 5 precepts, the practices, the main practices for these practitioners are the 4 immeasurables: compassion, loving kindness, joy, and equanimity. Right? These are your skills that need to be mastered. Once you've taken bodhisattva vows, now that you've taken more commitment to your practice, more commitment to the path to enlightenment, now we start to move on to the 6 perfections. It's the 6 paramittas, right? Of generosity, morality, patience, diligence, meditation, and wisdom, prajna. And then once you've taken the bodhisattva vows and you've committed your life now to the bodhisattva way and to dedicate your teaching and dedicate your practice to the fulfillment of Buddhahood for yourself and for all other beings, then we can move on to bigger, better things in our practice. So, really quickly here, the commentary on the stages of bodhisattvas, says that the stage of sentient beings whose lives are characterized by suffering, that there are many stages of bodhisattvas. The stage of sentient beings whose lives are characterized by suffering, which is the Shravakas, so it's us, the voice hearers. Then there's the stage of arhats, who are free from the wheel of rebirth. So these are beings that have attained enlightenment and attained nirvana. Then the stage of enlightened bodhisattvas, who have severed afflictions and ill habits. And then there's the stage of Buddhahood, or ultimate enlightenment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So once you're on this Bodhisattva path, right, by the time you're an actual enlightened Bodhisattva, you would have perfected the 6 perfections. So the 6 paramitas would have been perfected. But even then, and even now, we can all still aspire to practice and perfect those perfections and the 4 immeasurables. And as we progress in our practice and progress in our teachings and progress in our diligence and effort toward our liberation, then we can start to implement some of the aspects of the 37 factors of enlightenment, which include the 4 bases of mindfulness, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of spiritual power, the 5 faculties, the 5 strengths, the 7 factors of awakening, and the Noble Eightfold Path. These 7 categories constitute these 37 factors of enlightenment. These are the requisites in order to attain enlightenment. And so we don't have to be bodhisattvas or arhats or enlightened to practice these factors. These are things that we can that can benefit us now, that we can do now. And I just want to quickly go over this list really quick. So the first of the 7 categories is the 4 bases of mindfulness, or also known as the 4 factors of enlightenment. The 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is the contemplation of body, feelings, mind, and objects of mind. The 4 types of right efforts is the effort to prevent the arising of unarisen, unwholesome mental states, effort to abandon unwholesome mental states that have already arisen, effort to cultivate unarisen wholesome mental states, and effort to maintain wholesome mental states that have already arisen. The 4 bases of mental power is desire, or the will to act, effort or energy, consciousness, and investigation. The 5 spiritual faculties are faith or conviction, energy or effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. 5 spiritual powers are also faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. However, I can explain the difference. Even though the list is the same, there's specifications for each one. Then the 7 factors of enlightenment are mindfulness, investigation of dharmas, effort, rapture or joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And of course, the Noble Eightfold Path, we should all be familiar with by now. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right concentration, and right mindfulness. The Bodhisattvas also practice the 4 means of embracing, which is the embracing of giving, kind words, altruism, and empathy. Because these are the means to guide us to the truth. So giving should be practiced with the 3-fold emptiness of giving. This means that when giving, one should not have any idea of an I as the giver, nor of an individual who receives the gift, nor of the things being given. When we give without the notion of I as the giver, we are letting go of the notion of self. When we give without notion of a receiver, we are letting go of the notion of dualities. When we give without the notion of how much we are giving or the thought of recompense, we are letting go of the notion of phenomenon. This is true giving, right? Essentially, is what we talked about earlier. True giving is giving without the expectation of a return, without the expectation of any sort of acknowledgement or just anything. No expectations. Kind words means to speak with kindness and compassion, let our warmth and concern for others come through. Altruism is a very important virtue for the Bodhisattvas, and means that we engage in activities that benefit all sentient beings and guide them to the truth. So as long as our activities benefit sentient beings, it does not matter how grand or how insignificant our actions are. And then finally, the virtue of empathy means that we should put ourselves in others' shoes so that we can teach according to their perspectives. So we've always heard the term, put yourself in other people's shoes, right? As a bodhisattva, and as we're about to chant actually the 25th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, it's the chapter on Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is the bodhisattva of great compassion, kindness. They are mentioned to have 32 aspects or 32 characteristics or transformations, meaning that regardless of the situation that you need help with, whatever situation it is, Avalokiteshvara, if contemplated on, will come to you in whatever form suits you best. So if you're more comfortable with someone your own age, your own gender, your own belief system, or whatever it may be, someone old, someone young, someone completely stranger, whatever it may be, Avalokiteshvara would come to you in that form in order to help guide you. So this can also mean when we are doing like acts of kindness, right? Random acts of kindness. When you're being kind to someone or helping someone out, just to help them because you have this feeling of wanting to help, right? Without the expectation of a return or recognition. I always give the example that if you saw an old lady struggling at the H-E-B trying to get something from the top shelf, for instance, and you have to sit there and ask yourself, should I help? Do I have time to help? And you help anyway, that's not true giving. Because there's a question mark there. Do I want to? Do I need to? Do I have to? Right? And so true giving is giving and being helpful to someone kind of just automatically. Like it's just your habits and our nature to want to help them alleviate their suffering. Even though we may not see helping someone get, a can of beans from the top shelf as that big of a deal. But any insignificant act, as mundane as it may be, makes huge waves in our karmic sea, karmic ocean, right? There's a saying in Buddhism where we sow the seeds of our merit, meaning our consciousness is this field of merit, and you have the power to sow the seeds, whether wholesome seeds or unwholesome seeds. So even a small act of kindness is still a seed. So regardless of how big or small your act is, the seed is the same size regardless. So it doesn't matter how grand or how small the help is. The seed that we sow, this wholesome, positive seed that we sow in our field of merit, is always the same. So that's why sometimes people will be like, oh, do I have time? Do I want to? Do I need to? It's such a small thing. It's just a can of beans. Well, a can of beans may not mean nothing to you, but this can of beans could be this person's meal for 2 days. You don't know. It's the same thing when... Okay, quick story. It's the same thing. When we are making the movies in our mind when distractions arise during meditation, right? I say this all the time. If we are meditating, we're in complete peace and tranquility and all the good stuff in meditation. But then something happens. The door opens. The dogs start barking. The AC makes this weird rumbling sound that sounds like it's about to fall through the ceiling. Or maybe someone's yelling and screaming outside. Whatever it may be. Majority of us, the habit that we have is to wonder what that sound is. Where is it coming from? What is it caused by? Who's causing it? Who is it? Where are they? What are they? So we make all these stupid assumptions from the single point of just sound. So you're sowing seeds of ignorance. Because what is ignorance again? Not knowing. You don't know what the sound is. You don't know why if someone opened the door, it's a person that's coming to join us, right? You may be thinking to yourself, who are they? Why are they late? Why are they disturbing our meditation? Why are they coming halfway through the retreat? Well, none of that is your concern. And it doesn't matter. Even if you knew the answer, would it matter? Does it make a difference? No. So what is the point of making something up in the mind? And we do this all the time. When we see car accidents, we ask, who is it? What is it? What happened? How many people are involved? Did someone die? Are they hurt? Right? Or we see an argument in the street, or we see people yelling. We're just stupid, curious people. Our curiosity causes stupidity. However, curiosity causes wisdom when it's contemplation and self-reflection. Curiosity that is within is good. Curiosity that is out, none of your business. And this goes the same if someone's talking about you, someone's insulting you, someone is whispering about you. That's none of your business either. It's none of your business. I joke all the time and say, I love it when people insult me. It's great. Feel free. If I need to be your insult dummy, go for it. It makes me stronger. Insults are my teachers. I'm also unoffendable, so that's my one superpower from meditation. And so then of the 6 paramittas, the 3 paramittas of giving, morality, and patience benefit others, and they are the tools for the accumulation of merits and blessings. The other 3 paramittas of diligence, meditative concentration, prajna, wisdom, benefit oneself and are nourishment for wisdom. So again, when it comes to giving, we should not be concerned about recognition. That is the bottom line. Okay, I don't know how much more I can emphasize this. Do not do things for recognition. Morality can help us control our inclination to do wrong and lessen the karmic effect of our past wrongdoings. Regardless of which precept we are observing, the importance lies in the intention. So if our exterior behavior is only a facade and a cover for our ill intentions inside, then we are not living in accordance to the precepts. On the other hand, if our intentions are good, then we are observing the precepts even if we have to bend the rules a little to suit the situation. And this can be very obvious to yourself and to others, even to me, right? Me as a monk, not only do I have the 5 precepts, 58 precepts of Bodhisattva, but I also have 250 precepts as a monk. It's a lot of precepts. It's over 300 precepts, right? So if I'm up here telling you about the importance of precepts, the importance of upholding those precepts, but then I go out and do the exact opposite of what I'm preaching, you might as well fire me. But at the same time, sometimes the precepts do have to be, so bodhisattvas, the difference between ordinary people and bodhisattvas is, as ordinary people, we are afraid of the consequences of our actions. We are afraid of the effects of our causes. So we do something and we're worried about what will happen next. We're worried about the outcome. We worry about the consequence of that outcome. Whereas bodhisattvas are afraid to even make causes. They don't even want to make causes because the effects, whether it's positive or negative or neutral, they don't even want that. They don't need any more accumulation of merit or knowledge, merit or karma. So they avoid creating causes. Whereas we create all the terrible causes in our life, which is why we suffer. And then we worry about the outcome. Worry about the consequences of our actions. So even as bodhisattvas, even though they are perfect beings and have established and perfected the precepts can be let go as soon as you're enlightened. The Dharma can be let go as soon as you're enlightened. Because what is the Dharma? What is it doing for you? What is it, essentially? It's a guide, right? It's a blueprint. It's an instruction manual. But once you've completed your task, you no longer need an instruction manual, right? You need a whole bunch of tools and supplies to build a house. But once the house is built, you no longer need those tools and supplies. What you can do then is lend it out to someone else that may need those tools and supplies so they can build their house. But as us, as ordinary beings, we don't have that luxury of worrying about our causes. We worry about our defects more than anything else. And so if you're upholding the precepts, and even sometimes if you have to break a precept for good reason, because sometimes we have to, the example of bees, we have lots of hornet nests around the temple, right? Especially in the one column temple, especially in some of the columns around the perimeter. Of course, our first precept, very first precept, is to not take life, regardless of how much we hate insects and anything else. And so when we do find a hornet's nest, if it's in a location that is dangerous, meaning where a lot of foot traffic happens, well, unfortunately, we have to take care of the issue because some people can be deathly allergic, right? And so I take the karmic hit by extinguishing the life of the hornets or the bees. Oftentimes, Chris will be like, I'll do it, or Abel's like, I'll do it. I'm like, no. I need to do it. I'm willing to make the sacrifice of probably ending at least one life in hell, potentially. But anyway, the point is we can observe the precepts diligently, correctly, and bend the rules when need be. But if you're preaching the precepts and you're pretending you're abiding by the precepts, but then you go out and do the exact opposite of what you promised yourself to do, well then, you're just as useless as the words you've precepted to. Again, the precepts are not rules, they're not regulations, they're not commandments, they're not being forced upon you by anyone. If you've taken the precepts, no one's forced you to take the precepts. You willingly came to me and said, I want to take precepts. I want to take refuge. Okay, great. So if you made the commitment to do that, then why aren't you not making the commitment to uphold them correctly? Why do you come in temple and look all Buddhist-y, look like you're following the rules, but then you go out, your next destination after the temple is a bar, it's a strip club, it's a casino, somewhere stupid. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what people do these days. So, your internal commitments have to reflect the external commitments, and external commitments have to reflect your internal commitments. Okay, now, to the actual bodhicitta development. So just like truth, bodhicitta comes in both relative and absolute bodhicitta. So relative bodhicitta is the heartfelt aspiration to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings by actively working toward this goal through the ethical conduct, compassionate actions, and meditative practices. Relative bodhicitta is a type of bodhicitta that we as unenlightened beings practice. So we practice the developments of bodhicitta through the four immeasurables, through the six perfections, through the attempt to practice the 37 factors of enlightenment. And so we do things to accumulate merit, to accumulate our practice, to accumulate the perseverance and the diligence that's required to wholeheartedly put your actions into the aspiration and development of bodhicitta. Because absolute bodhicitta, on the other hand, is direct realization of the nature of reality, or emptiness, shunyata. This is a little bit more unattainable, not impossible, just a little bit more difficult. Especially if you're in the world and of the world. There's a saying that I always say that as a monastic, I am in the world, but I am not of the world. Meaning that I still have to be in the world, I still have to talk to the people, I still have to encounter and interact with the community, do all the stuff we do for the community, all the volunteering that we do for the community, but I'm not of the world. Meaning I don't participate in going out and partying to do entertainment stuff, to, just do out and do what people do, right? You go out and hang out with friends, go see movies, go to concerts, do this and do that. So I'm not of the world. Whereas lay practitioners, you are in the world and of the world. So you have more constriction, more restriction to your practice and to your time, to the effort that you're able to dedicate to the attainment of bodhicitta and enlightenment. Of course, you don't have to be a monk or nun to not be of the world, because what you do in the world is all up to you. You make the decision to do all the things that you do that's not beneficial to your enlightenment. You're the one that decides to go out and party. You're the one that decides to go to concerts and, what's the thing called? The rodeo, or to fiesta, to whatever you want to do. Looking at you. It's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. It's not that doing these things are inherently bad, right? What makes these things bad is the kind of addiction or the attachment, the grasping, the desire to want these things, to have these things, right? Because you're going to go, I'm going to go to fiesta, I'm going to go to rodeo and have fun, listen to music, meet my friends, and dance and party, and blah, 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 blah. Well, that sounds like you're using a lot of I's and me's and wants and loves and must-haves. Yes? Maybe? I'm not picking on you, I promise. I was never into fiesta. There's too many people. But again, you have control over that. You have control on what you do. You have control on how you practice, when you practice, how hard you practice, how hard you study, how hard you apply your studies to your practice. Because it's one thing to read a lot. We all read, assuming every one of us has read at least one book on meditation or Buddhism, if not more, not dozens. Half a book? Yeesh. You're my naughty student list. So we all do this, right? But there's a difference between just reading and gaining knowledge versus practicing and attaining wisdom. Because knowledge and wisdom are not the same. Knowledge is gained and is dependent on place, time and space, and in time and place, and how much you read. You can read 1,000 books and know a lot of things. You can know every sutra. You can know every teaching. You can know every numbered list that we have. But it doesn't mean you know how to apply them. It doesn't mean you know how to practice them. It doesn't mean you know how to realize them. So until we go into meditation and contemplate those teachings, and do some self-reflection, and look deep into those practices, and we dissect it through contemplation, right? When we contemplate, I think also the idea of contemplation, meditation is also a little confusing for some people, right? So when I tell you to go contemplate the Four Noble Truths, I'm just like, am I thinking? Am I reading? Like, what am I doing? Right? I get that question a lot. Contemplation meditation simply means if you're taking a topic like the Four Noble Truths, what you are doing is essentially debating with yourself in a way. You're dissecting the teaching. You first are recalling what you know of the Four Noble Truths. And then you dissect it a little bit more. You analyze the truth. You analyze what the Buddha said about the Four Noble Truths. You analyze what you've read about the Four Noble Truths. You analyze what your teachers said about the Four Noble Truths. And you analyze what you have learned from the Four Noble Truths. And you really dissect, you analyze, you go deeper and deeper to find the true meaning behind what are the Four Noble Truths. The very first Noble Truth is in life there is suffering. Well, what does that mean? What is suffering? Is it physical suffering? Do you have to get beat up to have suffering? Is it emotional suffering? Is it psychological suffering? It's all the above. Right? And so that's what contemplation is to recognize, deeply become familiar with this teaching, whatever you're contemplating on, and truly penetrating it. I was talking to Kai yesterday. Was that yesterday? Thursday, where I was telling him about my story of my kind of one of my most impactful aha moments, my true spiritual awakening, is when I was on my 3-month retreat in Thailand many years ago. It was during that retreat where my teacher at the time gave me the meditation object of impermanence. And so I sat there for 3 months meditating on impermanence every single day. Impermanence. Well, we superficially know what impermanence means. Impermanence just means that nothing lasts forever. But there's this profound impact when impermanence is truly realized, truly penetrated, where it truly, I can't find words to describe my experience. It was such impactful. There was an insight, a true insight of impermanence at the time. And I kid you not, for 4 days I cried. Because I realized the stupidity of my life prior to that. The stupidity of what I thought my life should have been, how it should have been. It made zero sense to me that I spent my entire life thinking that this is what life should be. And I got it. I had a really good life. But then this aha moment comes and it slaps me in the face like, no, stupid, you got it wrong. So impermanence is still a topic that I continue to meditate on till this day. It's probably my most meditated on topic. Because even though I've had that realization, impermanence never stops. Impermanence continues on. The only way we're going to stop impermanence is by attaining enlightenment. That is the only solution. How am I going to get to that solution? Oh, at the same time, when I had that aha moment, I also vowed that I was not going to do this again. Meaning life. I'm not going to do this again. I'm done. I don't want to be reborn again. Like, I need to get enlightened like right now. So that experience also gave me this what was the word I was looking for the other day? Resolve, right? There's another word I'm looking for too. Please hold. I wrote it down because I was meditating on it the other day. This This is my little aha moment book. When I have realizations during meditation, I write them down so I don't forget. Sense of urgency. It also gave me a sense of urgency that my practice needs to hurry up. My enlightenment needs to hurry up. And the only way it's going to hurry up is if I hurry up. So it was also at that moment I was like, I also probably need to become a monk. And even though at the time it was an impossible feat, but thankfully through many years of practice, my karmic bucket inventory, that was a good one. My good karma inventory was high enough, there was a surplus. So I was like, okay, well, now that I have a surplus in karma, this is probably a good time to ordain. And then bam, here I am, 10 years later. So anyway, so some of the, other than the practice and the perfection of the 4 measurables and 6 perfections, to develop bodhicitta, we can also use several meditation topics or objectives. The first one, and probably the most common one, is metta bhavana, metta meditation, meditation on loving kindness. That is the most beneficial for almost anybody. And of course, contemplation practices, so reflecting on the suffering of others and the transient nature of life, contemplating the Four Noble Truths and impermanence, so that you can have my aha moment as well. As well as doing altruistic actions, so we engage in acts of kindness and generosity by volunteering and so forth. By ethical living, by adhering to the 5 precepts and the 6 perfections. And of course, taking the Bodhisattva vows. So these are the direct links or the direct instructions that the Buddha provided to develop and maintain and perfect our bodhicitta. This is by, again, loving kindness meditation, contemplation, altruistic actions, ethical living, or following the precepts, and taking bodhisattva precepts, or bodhisattva vows, or just making a bodhisattva vow. You can all, I encourage you all to come up with your own bodhisattva vow and recite it every day. The bodhisattva vow that's in the book that we recite that every day as well. Whether it's the long version, my personal vow, or the 4 bodhisattva vows, either one of them are always they're at least in our evening chanting and our morning chanting. So, and if you've taken 5 precepts, the certificate, if I remember correctly, has the 5 precepts on there, right? 3 refuge and 5 precepts. So when you take the 3 refuge and 5 precepts on your little certificate, right? It lists the 3 refuge and 5 precepts. These are there for you to literally recite every day. So you should have this on your altar, or whatever holy space you have for your practice, and you recite those precepts every single day. And if you've committed to making a vow, you also recite your vow as well. And in future, if you take bodhisattva vows, you can either recite all 48 vows or simply just recite the 4 general bodhisattva vows. Right? Sentient beings are limitless. I vow to liberate them. Afflictions are endless. I vow to eradicate them. Teachings are endless. I vow to learn them. Buddhahood is supreme. I vow to attain it. Easy peasy. Yes? So, let's all be bodhisattvas. Let's all do good deeds, do good things, and attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay. I am 8 minutes after my time. I will give you 2 minutes for questions. Yes, ma'am. Mm. Correct. Listen to what you just said, though. That person needs a beating. According to whom? To you? Why are you that important that you think they need a beating? We're not. We can't make that decision. Righteous anger is not righteous. We can fix that problem without anger, without hatred. It may be a longer path and a more tedious solution, but there's still a solution that does not involve anger or hatred. It may not be the way that we want to approach it, right? Because we can see a lot of, just look at the world, for God's sakes. Like, it's in terror, it's in demise, and we need an apocalypse or something, right? But there's already so much anger and hatred and discrimination and bias and just terrible things going on in the world as is. To try to fix that is useless, if we're going to be quite honest here, right? To have a macro change is useless. This is why. When the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas make vows that they will stay in samsara to help all sentient beings until all of them have been liberated, it's something that's unattainable. Even the Buddhists know that. But the reason they vow that way is because they know, regardless of sentient beings will never all be liberated, they're going to continue that path trying to liberate them regardless. So what we can do in our life, because we cannot change the world on a macro level, because we're just one little insignificant being among 8 bazillion people in this world. What you can do instead is affect your immediate micro area, or community, right? Start with your community first. Because these are people that know you, these are people that trust you, these are people that know who you are, where you came from, what you do, how you are, know your values, know your benefits, right? And so your community is your first place of effect. And from there you can expand out, right? It's a domino effect. It may eventually get at a global level, but it may not be in your lifetime, right? So maybe if, let's say you've created a nonprofit organization or an organization that does whatever it is that's trying to help, right? You start it, you run it for 30, 40, 50 years until you pass, and then someone else continues on, right? And so the idea of helping is there. It was initiated by you, but it may not be done in your lifetime, but it'll continue on. But to try to change the whole world by yourself, no one's going to listen to you. Obviously, this is why we have wars. We're like, hey, don't do this. No, I want to do this. It's useless. It's more effective, it's more beneficial for your own sanity and for the sake of your community to start here and then work your way out. It's the best we can do. Good question. You're out of time, but I will allow it because I like you. Yeah. So the Buddha was actually in that same situation. So when the Buddha was enlightened, right, he at first did not want to teach others. He didn't believe that people were ready or intelligent enough or able enough to comprehend his teachings, right? And so again, there's different types of Buddhas. There's the Prateka Buddhas, who are the solitary Buddhas. They become enlightened, they become a Buddha, and that's it. They don't stay to teach, they don't come back, they just become Buddhas and they move on. Our Buddha, Shakyamuni, was a Samyak Sambuddha, meaning that he was a Buddha that did teach, but he only decided to be because he started out as a Prateka Buddha. But then he was influenced by the Devas and by other passerbyers that were coming around. And there's a set of brothers, and I can't remember their names at this moment, but they were merchants. And those were the first two people that the Buddha gave teachings to after his enlightenment. And so they were the first that begged him to go out and teach, right? They eventually also became his disciples, but they were the first that begged him to go teach. And it's like, I can't, right? I don't think people would understand. People may suffer more with these teachings, right? Because they're taking them in the wrong way. But then the Devas came to him and said, begging the Buddha to teach and saying that, some beings, of course, will not understand, will not comprehend, will not be able to surpass and perfect your teachings. But there are some beings with little dust in their eyes that will be able to accept and uphold your teachings. From there on, he continued, and thankfully he did. So here we are. So, the other thing the Buddha did very well was gauging his audience. The reason why we have thousands and thousands and thousands of sutras, and a lot of them are repetitive, is because he taught those topics according to the audience. So today at the temple, I'm going to talk about the Bodhisattva path and Bodhicitta. If I go to a high school and want to teach the same thing, I'm going to teach the same thing, but in a much more mundane, lower level of knowledge, right? Same aspect, same bottom line, just said differently. So for any vocation, literally any vocation, whether you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or you're a scientist or you're an astronaut, right? There's always different ways to teach according to who you're interacting with. Sometimes you choose the correct path, the correct way of teaching. Sometimes we don't. We don't know, right? We can't always read people. But for the most part, there's no harm in teaching regardless. Because I can give you the teaching all I want, but it's going to be up to you whether you take it or use it, right? Our teachings are like medicine, like the doctors. I can tell you, hey, I can prescribe you some medicine, but I can't force you to take the medicine. You have to be willing to want to take the medicine and cure yourself, So you can teach all you want. I can teach all I want. But I'm not going to expect any of you to go home and do anything about it, unless you actually go home and do something about it. Right? Yes? Does that answer your question, I hope? Okay. Since we are very behind schedule, we will transfer the merit, and then we will go to our second chanting session. Please join me in transferring the merit. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we have accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them enlightenment. Please go to the page 253. Your batteries in this for me, please. We have a chance. Oh yeah, batteries. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted, mindful, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas. Sattvas, may we awaken from forgetfulness and re-up our true home. The incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place auspicious, clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattvas. Homage to the
supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm of empty space and 3 periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss, Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, restored great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea-like Bodhisattvas. Please sit down. Om Sori Sori Maha Sori So Sori Swaha. Om Sori Sori Maha Sori So Sori Swaha. Om Sori Sori Maha So Sori Swaha. Namo great compassion, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Ratnatrayaya, Namo Adyavarokiteshvaraya, Bodhisattvaya, Mahasattvaya, Mahakarunikaya, Om Sarvaravaye Sudanadasya, Namo Skidvai Mamadyavarokiteshvara, Randava, Namo Narakin, Mahavaswami Sarvasat, Namo Vastava, Namo Vakamarita Tutadyata, Om Avalokitokati Kati Hiri Mahabodhisattva Sarvasat, Mala Mala Mahi Mahi Hridayam Koro Mahavijati Dara Dara Diri Nishvaraya Chara Chara Mama Bimala Muktadahiya Shina Shina Sham Shari Vishwa Vishwam Shaya Holo Holo Mara Holo Holo Siri Soro Soro Bodhiya Bodhiya Bodhaya Bodhaya Maitreya Nara Kindi Rishnina Baya Mana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Siddha Yogeshwaraya Swaha Nara Kindi Swaha Mara Nara Swaha Sira Simha Mokaya Swaha Sarva Swaha Chakra Siddhaya Swaha Padma Kasaya Swaha Nara Kindi Vagaraya Swaha Mavadi Sankaraya Swaha Namo Ratna Trayaya Namo Arya Dishvaraya Swaha Om Siryanto Mantra Padaya Swaha. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I hear it, receive, and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Lotus Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law. At the time the Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, immediately rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, pressed his palms together, and facing the Buddha spoke these words: World-honored one, this Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds. Why is he called perceiver of the world sounds? The Buddha said to Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, good man, suppose there are immeasurable hundreds, thousands, millions of living beings who are undergoing various trials and suffering. If they hear of this Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and single mind all his name, then at once he will perceive the sound of their voices, and they will all gain deliverance from their trials. If someone holding fast to that Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, fire, the fire could not burn him. This would come about because of this Bodhisattva's authority and supernatural power. If one were washed away by a great flood and call upon his name, one immediately find himself in a shallow place. Suppose there were 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million living beings who seeking for gold, silver, lapis lazuli, seashell, agate, coral, amber, pearls, and other treasures set out on the great sea. And suppose a fierce wind should blow horse and it drifted to the land of Rakshasa demons. If among those people there is even just one who calls the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and all those people be delivered from their troubles with the Rakshasas. This is why he is called perceiver of the world sounds. If a person who faces imminent threat of attack should call the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and the swords and staves wielded by his attackers would instantly shatter into so many princes, and he would be delivered, though enough yakshas and rakshasas to fill all the 1,000 worlds should try to come and torment a person if they hear him calling the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and these evil deem not even be able to look at him with their evil eyes, much less do him harm. Suppose there is a person who, whether guilty or not guilty, has had his body imprisoned in fetters and chains, chained and locked. If he calls the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and all his bonds will be once, and he will gain deliverance. Suppose in a place filled with all the evil-hearted bandits of the 1,000,000,000-fold world, there is a merchant leader who is guiding a band of merchants carrying valuable treasures over a steep, dangerous road, and that one man shouts out these words, "Good men, do not be afraid, you must single-minded the name of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds. This Bodhisattva can grant fearlessness to living beings. If you call his name, you will be delivered from these evil-hearted bandits." When the band of merchants hear this, they all together raise their voices, saying, "Namo Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds," and because they call it, are at once able to gain deliverance. Inexhaustible intent, the authority and supernatural power of the Bodhisattva and Mahasattva, perceiver of the world sounds, are as mighty as this. If there should be beings beset by numerous lusts and cravings, let them think with constant reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and then they can shed their desires. If they have great wrath and anger, let them think with reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and then they can shed their anger. If they have great ignorance and delusion, send reverence of Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and they can rid themselves of ignorance and inexhaustible intent. The Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, possesses great authority and supernatural power. I have described and can confirm many benefits. For this reason, living beings should constantly keep the thought of him in mind. If a woman wishes to give birth to a male child, she should obeisance and alms to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, and then she will bear a son blessed with merit virtue. If she wishes to bear a daughter, she will bear one with all the marks of comeliness, one who in the past planted the roots of virtue and is loved and respected by many persons. Inexhaustible intent, the Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, has power to do all this. If there are living beings, pay respect and obeisance to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds. Their good fortune will not be fleeting or vain. Therefore, living beings should all accept and uphold the name of Sattva, perceiver of the world sounds. Inexhaustible intent, a person who accepts and upholds the names of as many Bodhisattvas as there are sands in 62 million Ganges, and for as long as his present body lasts, he offers them alms in the form of food and clothing, bedding, and medicines. What is your opinion? Would this good man or good woman gain many benefits, or would he not? Inexhaustible reply, they would be very many. World honored one, the Buddha says, suppose also that there is a person who accepts and upholds the name of Bodhisattva, receiver of the world sounds, and even just once offers him obeisance and alms. The good fortune gained by these two persons would be exactly equal and without difference for 100, 1,000, cause it would never be exhausted or run out. Inexhaustible, intentive one accepts and upholds the name of Bodhisattva. Sounds he will gain the benefit of merit and virtue that is as immeasurable and boundless as this Bodhisattva, inexhaustible and said to the Buddha, world honored one, Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds. How does he come and go in the Saha world? How does he preach the law for the sake of living beings? Power of expedient means apply. In this case, the Buddha said to Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, good man, if there are living beings in the land, you need someone in the body of a Buddha in order to be saved. Receiver of the world sounds immediately manifests himself in a Buddha body and preaches the law for them if they need someone in a Paiteka Buddha's body. Order to be saved immediately, he manifests a Paiteka Buddha's body and preaches the law for them if they need a voice hearer to be saved immediately. He becomes a voice hearer and preaches the law. If they need King Brahma to be saved immediately, he becomes King Brahma and preaches the law for them. If they need the Lord Shakra to be saved immediately, he becomes the Lord Shakra, preaches the law for them. If they need the heavenly being freedom to be saved immediately, he becomes a heavenly being freedom and preaches the law for them. If they need the heavenly being great freedom to be saved immediately, he becomes a heavenly being great freedom and preaches the law for them. If they need a great general of heaven to be saved immediately, he becomes a great general of heaven and preaches the law. They need Vaishnavana to be saved immediately, he becomes Vaishnavana and preaches the law for them. If they need a petty king to be saved immediately, he becomes a petty king and preaches the law for them. If a rich man to be saved immediately, he becomes a rich man and preaches the law for them. If they need a householder to be saved immediately, he becomes a householder and preaches the law. If they need a chief minister to be saved immediately, he becomes a chief minister and preaches the law for them. If they need a Brahmin to be saved immediately, preaches the law for them. If they need a monk, a nun, a layman believer, or a laywoman believer to be saved, monk, a nun, a layman believer, or a laywoman believer, and preaches the law for them. If they need the wife of a rich man, of a householder, a chief minister, or a Brahmin to be saved immediately, he becomes those wives and preaches the law for them. If they need a young boy or a young girl to be saved immediately, he becomes a young boy or a young girl and preaches the law. If they need a heavenly being, a dragon, a yaksha, a gandharva, an asura, a garuda, a kinnara, a mahoraga, a human or a non-human being to be saved immediately, he becomes all these and preaches the law. If they need a Vaisha-bearing God to be saved immediately, he becomes a Vaisha-bearing God and preaches the law for them. Inexhaustible intent, this Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, has succeeded, acquiring benefits such as these and taking on a variety of different forms, goes about among the land saving living beings. For this reason, you and the others should single-mindedly offer alms to Bodhisattva, perceiver. This Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, perceiver of the world sounds, can bestow fearlessness on those who are in fearful, pressing, or difficult circumstances. That is why in this Saha world everyone calls him bestower of fearlessness, Bodhisattva. Full intent said to the Buddha, world honored palace adorned with numerous precious gems worth 100 pieces of gold, and presented it to the Bodhisattva, saying, "Sir, please accept this necklace of precious gems." At the time, Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, was unwilling to accept the gift. Inexhaustible intent spoke once more to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, saying, "Sir, out of compassion for us, please accept this." And the Buddha said to Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, out of compassion for this Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, and the four kinds of believers, the kings, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kimnaras, mahuragas, human and non-human beings, you should accept this necklace. Thereupon Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, having for the four kinds of believers and the heavenly beings, dragons, human and non-human beings, and the others, accepted the necklace, and dividing it into two parts, presented one part to, and presented the other to the tower of the Buddha. Many treasures the Buddha said, inexhaustible intent, these are the kinds of freely exercised supernatural powers the Bodhisattva, perceiver of the world sounds, displays in his comings and goings, and thus at the time Bodhisattva, inexhaustible intent, poses question in verse form. World honored one, replete with wonderful features, I now ask you once again, for what reason the Buddha's son is named Bodhisattva? The world sounds, the honored one, endowed with wonderful features, reply to inexhaustible intent in verse. Listen to the actions of the perceiver of sounds, how aptly he responds in various quarters. His vast oath is deep as the ocean, Kappa's past, but it fathomable. He has attended many thousands and millions of Buddha, setting forth his great pure vow. I will describe him in outline for you. Listen to his name, observe his body, him in mind, not passing the time vainly, for he can wipe out the pains of existence. Suppose someone should conceive a wish to harm you, should push you into a great pit of fire. Think on the power of the perceiver of sound. Pit of fire will change into a pond if you should be cast adrift on the vast ocean, menaced by dragons, fish, and various demons. Think on the power of sounds, and the billows and waves cannot drown you. Suppose you are on the peak of Mount Sumeru and someone pushes you off. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and you will hang in midair like the sun. Suppose you pursued by evil men who wish to throw you down from a diamond mountain. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and they cannot harm a hair of you. Suppose you are surrounded, hearted bandits, each brandishing a knife to wound you. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and at once all will be swayed by compassion. Suppose you encounter trouble with the king's law, face punishment, about to forfeit your life. Think on the power, perceiver of sounds, and the executioner's sword will be broken to bits. Suppose you are in lock hands and feet, bound by fetters and chains. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and they will fall off, leaving you free. Suppose with curses and various poisonous herbs someone should try to injure the power of the perceiver of sounds, and the injury will rebound upon the originator. Suppose you encounter evil rakshas, poison dragons, and various demons. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and then none of them will dare to harm you. If circle you their sharp fangs and claws, inspiring terror. Think on the power of the perceiver of sounds, and they will scamper away in boundless retreat. If lizards, snakes, vipers, scorpions threaten you with poison breath that sears like flame, think on the power, perceiver of sounds, and hearing your voice they will flee of themselves. If clouds should bring thunder and lightning strike, if hell sounds, and at the moment they will vanish. If living beings encounter weariness or peril, immeasurable suffering pressing them down, the power of the perceiver of sounds, wonderful wisdom can save them from the sufferings of the world. He is endowed with dull powers, and while he practices the expedient means of wisdom throughout the lands in the 10 directions, there is no region where he does not manifest himself in many different kinds of evil circumstances. In the realms of hell, hungry spirits or beasts, the sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, and death. By it wipes out he of the true gaze, the pure gaze, the gaze of great and encompassing wisdom, the gaze of pity, the gaze of compassion. Constantly we implore him, constantly look up and reverence his pure life, free of blemishes, a son of wisdom, dispelling all darkness. He can quell the wind, fire of misfortune, and everywhere bring light to the world. The precepts from his compassionate sends down the sweet dew, the Dharma rain, to quench the flames of earthly desires. When lawsuits bring you officials, when terrified in the midst of an army, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and hatred in all its forms will be dispelled. Wonderful sound perceiver of the world sounds, Brahma sound, the Sitai sound, they surpass those sounds of the world. For you should constantly think on them from thought to thought, never entertaining down. World sounds pure sage to those in suffering and danger of death. He can offer aid and support, endowed with all benefits. He views living beings with compassionate eyes. The sea of his accumulated blessings is immeasurable. Therefore you your head to him at the time the Bodhisattva earth holder immediately rose from his seat, advanced and said to the Buddha, world honored one, if there are living beings who hear this chapter on Bodhisattva, perceiver of the worlds, the freedom of his actions, his manifestation of a universal gateway, and his transcendental powers, it should be known that the benefits these persons gain are not few in the Buddha universal gateway. A multitude of 84,000 persons in the assembly all conceive the determination to attain the unsurpassed state of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Namo Saptanam Samyak Sambodha Kotinam Tadyata Hum Chade Chode Chunde Swaha. Namo Saptanam Samyak Sambodha Kotinam Tadyata Hum Chade Chode Chunde Swaha. Namo Saptanam Samyak Sambodha Tadyata Hum Chade Chode Chunde Swaha. Heart of the Prajna Paramita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the discourse of Prajna Paramita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally empty. After this penetration, he overcame ill-being. Listen, Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness, emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore in emptiness there is neither form nor feeling. So mental formations or consciousness, no eye or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, so interdependent origins and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas ground in Prajna Paramita find no obstacles for their minds, having no obstacles they overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore one should know that perfect being is the highest mantra, the unequal mantra, the destroyer of ill being, the incorruptible truth. The mantra prajnaparamita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate gate para samgate bodhi swaha. Gate para samgate bodhi swaha. Gate bodhi swaha. Namo amitabhaya tathagataya taryata amrita bhavi amrita siddham bhavi amrita vikranti amrita vikranta gamini gagana kirta kare swaha. Namo amitabhaya tathagataya taryata amrita bhavi amrita siddham bhavi amrita vikranti amrita gamini gagana kirta kare swaha. Namo amitabhaya tathagataya taryata amrita bhavi amrita siddham bhavi amrita vikranta gamini gagana kirta kare swaha. We invoke your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening in order to help relieve the suffering in the world. You know how to listen in order to understand. We invoke your name in order to practice listening with all our attention and heartedness. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We will sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying and also what is being left unsaid. We know that just by listening, Pity alleviates a great deal of pain in the other person. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Sattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. 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 Namo Avalokiteshvara Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. I take the one who shows me the way in this life. I take in the Dharma the way of and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of I learned to open many doors on the path of transformation, dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakening, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire, help all people build fourfold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings who give guidance